Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Francis Bradley, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Canadian Electricity Association, or CEA. I'm happy to be joined today by Cara Clairman. She's the CEO and founder of Plug and Drive. CEA is the voice of Canadian electricity. Our members generate, transmit, and distribute electricity to Canadians from coast to coast to coast. They make sure that Canadians have access to the reliable, clean, and affordable electricity that powers our economy. We worry about keeping the lights on so you don't have to. Today, we're here to provide comments and support for recommendations announced last week in an interim report by the government's Advisory Council on Climate Action. The report suggests concrete actions from government that will help with the electrification of Canada's transportation sector. These include consumer incentives for up to $5,000 for the purchase of electric vehicles, support for charging infrastructure, including at workplaces, condos, and apartments, continued investments in research, and public awareness efforts. Collectively, these would help with the shift to electric vehicles that will be part of any broader electrification strategy, which is something our sector has been encouraging. Electrifying personal vehicles represents the next best step to Canada's environmental targets, to meeting our targets, and it builds on our clean energy advantages. Canada produces among the cleanest electricity in the world, and it is only getting cleaner. Already more than 80% of power produced in Canada is non-emitting. Our sector has reduced greenhouse gas emissions by 30% since 2005, and we are on pace to double this by 2020. On top of that, our members have committed to aggressive timelines that will see coal effectively removed from Canada's electricity generation mix. I'll have a few more things to say on how our sector is approaching this, but first, I'll turn things to Cara so she can talk about the increase in consumer demand for cleaner vehicles. Cara?
Well, thank you so much, Francis, and good morning. As Francis said, my name is Cara Clairman. I'm the President and CEO of Plug and Drive. And Plug and Drive is a not-for-profit with the goal of accelerating EV adoption for its environmental and economic benefits. We do this primarily through education and outreach, research, and public policy development. In 2017, Plug and Drive opened the EV Discovery Center in Toronto. This is a one-stop shop experiential learning center with all the makes and models of EV available to test drive all in one place. So consumers can learn all about the benefits, environmental and economic, of EVs in a no-pressure, no-sales environment. Since opening in May of 2017, we've had more than 15,000 visitors through the doors. And we also, of course, survey those visitors. And what we have found is it's working incredibly well. Our latest survey of test drivers showed that 33% of those drivers had already purchased the car 6 months after visiting. So why did we create a center and an outreach program that's devoted and focused on EV education? Well, there was two main reasons. First, transportation is the #1 emitting sector for greenhouse gases in most of the provinces in Canada. Number two, our research shows that consumers need help to make the switch. It's not as simple as putting in the infrastructure. You need to help them understand these benefits. And here in Canada, as you heard from Francis, electrification of transportation presents a huge opportunity. Most of Canada's electricity is already low emitting from a GHG point of view and getting lower. In many jurisdictions across Canada, switching from a gas car to an EV drops your GHG emissions by as much as 90%. You save money as well. Electricity is about 1/5 to 1/7 the price of gas, saving consumers on average, about $2,000 a year in fuel and maintenance costs. And of course, here in Ontario and in many other parts of Canada, we have a nighttime surplus of electricity, and night is a very convenient time to charge a car. And so that's good for the grid. In fact, a U.S. study showed that increasing the use of that nighttime surplus actually has the opportunity to reduce electricity prices for everyone. So lower costs, lower emissions, we have a win-win on our hands. So how are we doing in Canada so far? Not too bad. I've been working with Plug and Drive on EVs since 2008, and we're definitely seeing unprecedented growth in EV sales and in EV readiness. Of course, it's a worldwide movement, including here in Canada, and we rank about 10th in the world right now for EV sales, and we had a 125% increase in sales in 2018. So that brings us to about 100,000 EVs on the road in Canada. So it's still a small number, relatively speaking, but growing exponentially. And most of this growth comes in 3 provinces, Ontario, Quebec, and British Columbia. And why is that? Well, those provinces have very EV-friendly policies, including rebates. And these supportive policies plus rebates seem to be working. So that's why we were so pleased to see the recommendations in the interim report. We know that supportive policies on EV education and infrastructure combined with incentives help make EVs accessible to more Canadians and can help us take a big bite out of transportation GHG emissions. A study just done last week by Clean Energy Canada showed that most Canadians want EVs, and in fact they see one in their future. But what about those Canadians who can't afford a new car, whether it's gas or electric? Well, Quebec and BC both offer incentives on used electric vehicles, and we're very pleased to let you know that Plug and Drive, with the help of a private philanthropist and Clean Air Partnership, will be launching a used EV incentive program here in Ontario in mid-April. More details to be coming soon. We want to help make EVs available to everyone. So in summary, it's a very exciting time in the EV industry, with countries banning gas cars. The electricity companies are ready to supply the electricity that's needed. The automakers are electrifying more and more makes and models. Range is increasing, prices are decreasing. And of course, with that low-emitting, low-cost electricity, we have everything in place. So it's no longer an if, but a when EVs will be for everyone. So let's work together just to make that when a little bit sooner. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Cara. So as you heard from Cara, there's no doubt that individual Canadians are embracing the prospect of electric vehicle ownership. But the trick to having more EVs on the road in Canada is about more than just providing incentives for people to buy them. We need to make sure that the electricity infrastructure is in place to make that happen. CEA members have been working to support this transition and meet the demands of our customers by expanding charging stations and making sure that electricity grids are able to support the load. Part of how we'll be doing this is by taking advantage of new smart grid technologies, something the government is already supporting through a $100 million pilot program that's currently being rolled out in communities across Canada. These new technologies will allow utilities, for example, to help balance demand by charging EVs at periods of low demand and price. Utilities will be able to take better advantage of baseload power, which might reduce overall costs. For consumers, the experience is going to be seamless. They're car charging while they sleep overnight, and it'll be ready to go in the morning. In the future, smart grids might even allow for electric cars to be used as batteries to provide power back to the grids in times of need. That's why, as more electric vehicles hit the road, it is imperative that electric utilities have access to consumer data and are given the ability by regulators to invest in these new customer demands. Pilot programs are great to demonstrate technology, but there'll be a clear need to bring them to commercial scale expeditiously. We must also consider how to support EV adoption by the 1/3 of Canadians that live in apartments and condos. The interim report highlights these challenges and suggests some measures to address the gap. But expansion of charging infrastructure to multi-residential buildings, offices, and beyond will be hindered by outdated rules regarding electricity metering. Because the definition hasn't been updated in decades, new metering technologies that would make it economically practicable to install EV chargers cannot be used. Addressing this will be important, and straightforward legislative fixes to solve this exist. This Council's report offers valuable recommendations for the transportation sector. However, we know the movement towards electrification will occur across industries. This includes Canada's building sector through space and water heating, as well as industrial applications. We're excited to see what the full report brings in the spring. Canadians understand how electric vehicles will help them to individually address climate change and are clearly interested in embracing them. This is a reminder that reducing carbon emissions is about more than just putting a price on carbon. It's also about finding ways Canadians can have an impact themselves on the environment. Expanding the use of zero-emission vehicles must be part of that future.